Hi there, I'm Karen Dunn of KMD Productions. From the equipment manufacturers to the engineers to the business people behind the scenes, over the years, every member of the pro audio corner of the music industry has become family to me, and it's my job to bring the whole eclectic crew together. Each episode, I'll introduce you to one of these characters and open a window into my world of creating community in pro audio. Thanks for tuning in to One and Dunn.
Are you recording this? You are, aren't you?
Yeah. I had to. You would have recorded it.
I would have. You're absolutely right. You nailed it.
Okay. Today we're talking to Michael Pearson-Adams. He's the Director of Training and Development and Product Manager at Waves. Longest title ever. But really all you need to know about Michael is that he's loud, he's a bald Australian, and he loves Foster's beer.
No. Okay, rewind. Whoever is watching this, you need to understand that Foster's is not even owned by an Australian. It's like if you ask for a Foster's beer in Australia, you're going to get deported. Please, my best advice to you is don't do it.
Well, you keep telling me you like it.
No, I don't. You can. Okay. So if we're gonna talk on this wonderful podcast to these wonderful people, I really want to defend myself first by saying, before Karen explains how we met, Karen has gone to the lengths of actually ordering Foster's beer to one of my own events because she thought it was funny.
It is funny.
And it was in LA, and I remember Chris Lodalgi walking up to me going, "Hey, Foster's." It's like, that's your stuff, right? It's like, no, it's not. It's about as Australian as the Outback Steakhouse, which is not very.
No grilled shrimp on the bobby.
Did I just overtake your podcast? I should probably be quiet because remember.
Gee, that's shocking. Okay, so let's talk about how we met. So I'm sure it was at some Waves event. I've done Waves event for many years until fairly recently. I have two outstanding memories with you. One would be at the Moxie Hotel in New York.
Yeah.
So because one of the things that we've done in all our travels throughout the country is gone on a search for the best margarita.
The countries, right? So, yeah, we could actually start, probably, Karen, we could probably start our own kind of Yelp review, this continent's best margarita. And we're very judgmental. It's like we're tough critics.
We are. Well, we've had plenty of them, so we know what's good.
And the ones at the Moxie were amazingly expensive.
But that bartender made great margaritas.
She did, but damn, we paid for it.
Well, it's because, as you said, we were in a prison cell in our room.
Okay, so and that is something that's interesting about New York. I mean, I've had a lot of travel in New York, as have you, for different trade shows. But the Moxie, apart from being one of the flashiest and nicest bars I've been to in a New York hotel, the rooms were smaller than prison cells I've stayed in.
Okay, wait. Have you had a lot of experience in prison cells?
Only twice. And one was in Asia and the other one was in Tijuana. Neither of which will surprise anybody who's done any travel.
Okay, so which jail cell was better?
Definitely the one in Indonesia. I mean, the one in Tijuana was just no. Yeah, okay. No stars for that one. Would not recommend. 1 star.
Okay. So, and we also stayed at I think maybe it was a Sheraton in.
You're going to talk about Seattle, Texas. Aren't you? Oh no, you're not.
I'm working my way up to Seattle. Okay, so we stayed it was a Sheraton or something in Dallas or somewhere in Texas, I think.
It was in Austin. And
okay, I did not pick that hotel.
Nor did I.
Nor did you. And looking out my room, I could see the graveyard, and they had like a Denny's or something in the parking lot, right?
Right. Well, yeah. So the
Okay.
in our defense, and just in case he does get to hear this, the hotel was booked by the then sales manager of Waves, my friend Luke Smith.
I
And
wasn't going to mention his
oh,
name.
I am. I'm going to call him out. And Luke booked us into a hotel, and we turned up at the same time, and we both, Karen and I, are standing outside this hotel, looking around, going, "Is that a cemetery?" And she was like, "Yeah, that is a cemetery." And then we looked left, and I went, "Is that a Denny's in 1960s kind of caravan style?" And she goes, "Yes, it is." And then Jack Joseph Puig turned up, and the entire visit got way more interesting.
Okay, so um, you guys have all been banned from booking hotels. I got to take that over after you booked us into a place in Seattle. And I'm happy to talk about the Shining story, but if you want to, that's fine.
No, I think I should let you talk a bit. It's your podcast. It's your show. Go for it.
Okay. Okay. So we were doing an event at Microsoft, and it was Michael and me and Brad Divins, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So Michael and I were there at the same time. Well, no, I got there a little early, and walking in, it was kind of the Deliverance music started playing in my head. And they sent me over to my room. And so I went over to my room and found out the carpet was sticky and my drawers didn't close in the dresser. Not that I would use them. So then,
Your drawers didn't just not close. Your drawers, you would close them and they would just
well,
roll back
they would
open.
open. Yeah, yeah. So Michael had a similar experience, except not the sticky carpet, which I'm not really sure what was on that carpet. So we spent at least the next hour or so looking for a new place to stay, and everything was booked. We'd even contacted Brad, who had just landed. He was game for anything,
I
but
think that was. I mean, there's only one word that can describe that hotel experience, and that's regret. It have. I mean, by that point in time, I've been traveling for at least the last 20 odd years of my life. And this is the first hotel that I can tell you where the photos tricked me into actually believing their BS. And it's people, I kid you not, Karen and I sat across from each other in a really bad diner within walking distance of the hotel, both looking like we were about to get our legs amputated. We were that depressed, scrolling through our phones, going, "What about this hotel? No, booked. What about this one? Oh, no, booked." So then I text Brad, and Brad's attitude was amazing. He was like, "Well, dude, I've been touring my whole life. I've stayed in much worse, I'm sure." And I was like, "You probably haven't," but he had.
and the hallways look like The Shining. They really did.
Red
I
rum,
just
red,
didn't
red,
see
red
the
rum.
yeah.
Yeah.
There were no twins, but so we've had some good experiences on the road. But let's go backwards a little bit, and why don't you talk about how you got to where you are now?
Okay, so currently where I am right now is I'm an Australian working for an Israeli company out of this wonderful big continent that we call America. Um, I started in the music industry when I was 16. But before that, I was trained classically in piano by the Royal Academy of Music in the UK from the age of 5 through boarding school. So I loved music, but when we moved to Australia, I put up a little ad in the local music shop with absolutely no idea of what I was in for, saying, "I want to join a band." I didn't even know any modern music. So these people turn up one day and go, "We want to talk to Michael." And I go, "That's me." Um, I was innocent, naive, dumb, and completely gullible. So they pick me up. They take me to their band rehearsal room, which is covered in egg cartons, and
Mhm.
they start playing some songs. And it took them about 15 songs before they go, "Do you know any of these?" And I was like, "No." So somehow they kept me, and we ended up continuing as a band, and then I ended up being asked to do some touring with NXS as a backup keyboardist, which was kind of cool. So I left that band behind. And that kind of made me fall in love with the studio after I realized that I was too short, too fat, too ugly, and not enough talent to be a rock star. So I found the first recording studio I could find after I'd done that stint as a keyboardist with them, and went in as a coffee boy and just worked my way up. I gave myself 10 years in radio broadcast industry, and I said, okay, so by 1998 I want to have had my first number one single in the music world, or I want to be well on the way to doing it. Now in 1998 I was still in Melbourne. I was still working as senior producer for a radio syndication company back in the time called MCM. And I resigned at the end of that year. And this is where you're going. I said, I don't know, but I've given myself up until this point in time. And now it's time to move on. Packed up all my stuff, moved to Sydney, and ended up moving up to North Queensland and building a recording studio for $2 million as somebody else's money. And by the end of 1999, I had my first number one with my first band that I created with my business partner, Reno. I got a number one single and a number one album with a duo called Shakaya. From there, I ended up coming to the States. And from there, cutting a very long story short, I ended up meeting the guys at Waves, and I've been with Waves now for 16 years, as well as having my own studio here and mixing and doing projects and tweaking and other stuff like photography.
So, okay, well, first, before we do that, you gave yourself a deadline, and even though you were gainfully employed, when that time came up, you stopped and you went on.
Yeah.
So I was going to talk about this later, but let's talk about it now. So it's change. Change is hard. It's a challenge. What made you do that? And you're like that still now.
Yeah, I am. I mean, one of the things which I'm actually, you may even let me promote it, the website for the pre-launch for it while I'm here. But I'm 3/4 of the way through writing a book called "Fuck It, What's the Worst That Could Happen?" Because that's kind of been my mantra through life. Is you have to say yes to things that you're not sure about. You have to put yourself in places that you don't know whether you're actually going to succeed or not. You actually have to put yourself in uncomfortable positions to move forward. Coming straight from boarding school for age 5 to age 14, and then going to Australia a year later and putting an ad in the music shop to join a band, I was scared out of my mind, and I thought these guys were going to beat me up and kick me out the back of the truck. But that moved me a step forward. Becoming a coffee boy and using the dripping tap theory and hassling people until they were blue in the face, until literally the guy at the radio station said, "Yeah, just come in and shut up." My boss at Waves has said the same to me many times. Yeah, just come in, but shut up. But you have to do that. So in 1998, I really got to the point where I loved my job. It was very secure. I was mixing 3 of the most listened to networked radio shows in Australasia. I had a great gig, but it wasn't getting me anywhere. It wasn't getting me anywhere closer to where I wanted to go. So I'd given myself a deadline, and against everybody's sage advice, I went, "Fuck it, what's the worst that could happen?" And moved on. Are we on a time limit, or can I tell a funny story about how I actually ended up with creating the band in Cairns? Because
as long as it's funny,
it is funny. So. I get to Sydney with all of my stuff, and I'm staying with my brother and his then wife. And I get a phone call from another radio network saying, "Listen, we know you left, but are you willing to do some contract work up in North Queensland?" I thought, money, I'll take it. So I head up to North Queensland, and I've been given the job of basically starting a radio station from scratch. So I was not very popular. So I'm sitting in my hotel room for my 30th birthday, and I'm alone because nobody in the radio station likes me in Cairns, North Queensland, because I'm, again, not very popular for the decisions I'm making. I'm in a
Mhm.
hotel room. Nobody can come up and hang with me for my birthday, but I did have my best friend, Tequila. So I end up sitting on the balcony of this hotel going, what have I done with my life? I'm so lonely. And I ring up a really good mate of mine, Richard Wilkins, and he's like, "Where are you? And what are you doing?" I said, "Oh, it's my birthday, and I've crucified my life." And he goes, "Okay, give me 5 hours, and I'll call you back." And he hangs up on me. I think that's it. Now everybody hates me. 5 hours later, he calls me back and he goes, "Pick me up from the airport." I go, "I can't pick you up. I'm drunk." So he taxis to my hotel and he says, "Get in the car, get in the taxi," because there's no Uber back then. This is what, 2000. Get a taxi. I'm going to take you to a club to meet a friend of mine. And he takes me to this club and I meet this guy called Reno Nicastro, who becomes one of my best friends. I cannot remember how I got from that club back into my hotel room, but I do remember that I got warned by some policemen for wandering around a car park at 5 a.m. Anyway, I get a phone call from Reno the next day saying, "You didn't call me." I go, "What?" He goes, "You didn't call me." I go, "I don't even know who you are." And he goes, You met me last night at my club." I go, "Oh, yeah, vaguely remember." So he then said, "Richard said you can build me a studio. Are you going to build me a studio?" So, and he gave me $2 million and said, "Build a studio." So I did for the next 6 months. And then we went off looking for talent. And then I had my number one album.
Wow,
So
that's a great story.
it is a fun story. But again, it's like you have to kind of like get out of your comfort zone sometimes. I mean, you're a perfect example. The existence of the fact that you are sitting with me and you're staring into a camera and you're going out and interviewing people and you're doing these networking gigs and the mentoring. I am ridiculously proud of you because you went way out of your comfort zone.
Well,
The first time I asked you to sit in front of a camera and said, "This is good for you," you looked at me and said, "I don't like you for this."
that's true. I did say
And you
that.
said that a lot, and I kept on
Yeah.
hassling you, but look where you are now. This is awesome.
Well, see, I have you and a couple other people whose hands are pressed firmly on my back, pushing me forward. So it's kind of hard to retreat with that.
Going back to
Okay.
quickly, somebody else you mentioned Marcella.
Yes.
If you want to talk about going out of comfort zones, Marcella is an amazing example of that. Even even to this day, it's like if she doesn't know how to do something, she'll probably still say yes, and then she'll work it out.
Right.
I think I kind of feel like there are too many people who just need a little nudge, just a little nudge, to push them into the next phase of their life that they don't even know exists. And that's why I'm nearly done writing this book called "Fuck It, What's the Worst That Could Happen?"
Okay. So do you think that people, I talk to people all the time, oh, you have an event company? God, that sounds great. I'd love to have a company, but no, don't want to take the risk. So it's the same kind of thing, right? Where you're out of your comfort zone. When I decided I want to do this podcast, I thought, why would I want to do that? I'm not in my comfort zone at all. It's like far away from me. The co-producer said, "Oh, that's a great idea." So here I am. But do you think that people have certain characteristics that they're just that are innate in them that they can stand up to the challenge and move forward, even when they make a mistake and they're beaten down, but they still get up and go forward the next day?
In some way, yeah, but I also am a huge believer in my faith in human nature. In nearly every single case where somebody is being put into a horrible situation or a ridiculously scary situation,
Mm-hmm.
where all of their choices are narrowed down to either choice A or choice B, one is terrible and the other one is going to be better, but it's going to be hard. Nearly
Uh-huh.
always, every time when they're put in that really, really tenuous situation, human nature will push you to take the right choice. And you hear it all the time on the news or with friends, people going, I don't know why I did that. I just did it. I believe I nearly feel that when I'm coaching people like you or training people, I just have to push you into the deep end of the pool once and be there to pick you out, pull you out again. But once you've been pushed in, you realize this isn't quite as bad. I can do this, or I can take the next step. I do feel that anybody could do this. It just takes a bit of time. That's all. And time is something that I'm afraid most people these days don't want to put into something, which it frustrates me, but I don't give up.
Yeah, me neither. And it's more of a challenge. See, for me, I take it as a personal challenge.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
absolutely.
want
It's like, I mean, I'm a product manager at Waves now. I know zero about being a product manager, but I went to the owners and my boss, Mick, and said, I'm looking for a new challenge. I really want to do this. I don't know how to do this. If you give me the chance, then I will do my absolute best and I'm going to prove that I can. And they went, okay, we'll do it. And every day is new, and every day I kind of look at the camera and smile in meetings, but internally I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing yet.
Uh,
And so,
Me too.
so,
Me
but the
too.
fact is, you can either say, I don't know what I'm doing and I'm not going to do it, or you can say it to yourself while you're doing it. Because the simple fact is, there are people out there right now who are doing what you want to do out there, doing it way worse than you could. But the difference is they're doing it and you're still thinking about it in most cases.
Hmm. Right.
So,
Right. Okay. I want to talk about your art, but before that, I do have one more hotel story. So we were in Nashville and we stayed at the Four Points.
we did, yeah.
Remember? Yeah, it's right by the airport. So we were there. It was fine. We did our event. We went home. I was back at that hotel 2 weeks later. Same person at the front desk. And I said, "Hi, how you doing?" And she said, "Fine." Obviously, she didn't know who I was. And I said, "Do you remember who I am? I was just here." She said, "No." I said, "Okay, I was with this loud Australian. Do you remember me now?" She goes, "Oh yeah, I do."
Um, so, in all of the travel that Karen and I have done together, I've embarrassed her greatly on many occasions by doing things or saying things that are specifically designed to make sure that we are the best memory that's from a service point of view, or a a kind of like a hotel worker's point of view that they have had that day. I have ordered her breakfast through a drive-through speaker in Weird Voices.
Yeah,
I think I did Doctor Evil once. I think I've done, but generally speaking, my goal is to make sure that we are remembered big time, and it's going to make them smile when they do remember. Because if I can do that, then I've made someone's day, and that's a win.
yeah, it is. It's pretty cool. So let's talk about your photography.
Okay,
Okay, how did you get into that? And how did you pick your subject matter?
so. When my father was starting to decline in health back in 2010, I was back in the UK literally every 2 or 3 months. My stepmom would say, "Your dad's not doing too well." So if I had the chance, I'd jump on a plane and I head to the UK. And there's finally, I think it was the last time he was in hospital before he made his last trip there. He'd said to me, Mike, can you? And he is literally the only person on planet Earth who I let call me Mike. I can't stand being called Mike, but I let Dad do it because, well, he named me. He's allowed.
Right.
He said, "Can you go around some of these places, and take some photographs for me on this trip?" And that was about a week before I jumped on a plane. I thought, well, if I'm going to take some photographs, I want to see if I could take some good ones for him. So I went out and bought myself a camera. And I actually did my usual thing of going onto the internet and Googling some things to see how do you take good photos and how do you do this? And I found all this stuff about HDR and bracketing, and I thought, I don't know what okay, let me just take a camera. And so I went around and I spent a week in all the places that Dad had spent his life in the UK and Ireland taking photos. And I found that I enjoyed the composition of taking photos as much as I enjoy the composition of a song or creating a piece of music production. The same things go into it. You have to compose it first, you then have to edit it, you then have to do the post-production and master it or print it. They're both the
How
same.
much how much of it's in your head? Like how much do you
Now,
is
now a lot of it. Back then, I was clueless. I was doing the same thing I did when I want to join a band. I was clueless, but I remember coming back from that trip to the UK after taking some photos that I look back on now and think are absolutely hideous, but they did the job for Dad.
Mhm.
And I remember telling one of my best mates, Scott Papik, who had moved from the music industry and had opened his own gallery as a fine art photographer in Omaha. I remember saying, this photography thing is kind of cool. And he was, okay, you coached me through my audio career. I'm now going to coach you through your photography career. Are you ready for your first lesson? I said, yes, I am. He goes, your photos are terrible. Which is automatically going to spur me to fix it.
Right.
So I think the following year I went on a photo location shoot with him, 12 days through the Pacific Northwest, and that changed my life. Changed my life. And I think it was about 3 months later I sold my first photo, and it's like next thing I know, I've got a gallery and a website that's selling well and another income. And next thing I know, I'm selling prints for anywhere up to 15 grand each. So yeah,
Pretty amazing.
I'm hugely proud of it.
Yeah. Well, your stuff is amazing.
Thank you. Nowadays, I actually have an idea in my head before I actually even get to a location of what I want. And if the weather isn't what I'm thinking in my head or the visual isn't what I'm thinking in my head, then I don't even bother taking the camera. I just turn around and leave.
Wow.
One of the things that I really, really try and pride myself in is a photo, like a piece of music, has to tell a story. It has to
Mhm.
tell a story, but it has to do it in way less time. If you're buying a piece of art, then every time you walk past it, it has to invoke some kind of emotion. And a lot of that time, you want a piece of art on your wall that's going to make you stop and stare at it for a couple of seconds each time. The same as when somebody really loves their car, they turn around and look at it when they're walking from into the car park.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
if a piece of art doesn't do that, then it's going to be as successful as a really shit song on the radio that people hear and never want to listen to again. So,
Right.
same deal.
Okay. So, favorite spot to shoot?
Either my home country of Australia or definitely the Pacific Northwest. The Pacific Northwest of the United States and Canada is probably one of the most beautiful places on earth in a very, very varied way. Um, from the rainforests to the mountains to the rivers and waterfalls. I mean, and the prairies. I mean, one of the most well, the most famous wallpaper picture of Windows 98 or whatever it was
Hmm.
shot in Washington State. Um, yeah, it's without doubt. I don't even have to think about that one. Pacific Northwest.
And do you have a favorite subject? Is it sunrise, sunset, trees, beaches,
Water.
water, water?
I need to be near water. I can't live in the middle of a country. I can't be landlocked. Water is really important to me. Sunrise is probably one of my favorite times solely because I feel like I'm one of the only people awake on Earth.
Hmm.
And also, a lot of the time at sunrise, the water is at its calmest if you're at an area that doesn't have surf. So you've got this beautiful, placid, glass like water in a lake or an ocean and all you can hear is your own breathing, maybe the breeze, and maybe
Hmm.
some birds. That's idyllic to me. Um,
Yeah.
it's and a lot of the time I'll just go and shoot just for the pleasure of it, and I'll never show anybody those shots. I just do it for the hell of it
Right.
because I can't think of a better therapy than nature. I just can't.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're a swimmer, and yeah, you also love going out with your dog, so you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. There's definitely something you can achieve outside of your
Oh
office.
yeah,
You
absolutely.
know.
So much. Yeah, you've got to get out of
Yeah.
the space. This space,
Yeah.
this little space that I have here, can easily become a mental prison if you don't get out of it occasionally.
Yeah. Yeah. Hardest thing to shoot.
The hardest thing to shoot is emotion. By that I mean it's very very easy to point a camera at something and click it, and it's a beautiful sunset, and it's a beautiful this and everything else, and it's like great, fantastic, good one. But you have to try and capture the emotion of what you're feeling, or what the feelings you want to evoke, the emotions you want to
Hmm.
evoke from that location. That's hard. That's right up there with creating a piece of music that evokes emotion. Capturing a an image in a micro of a second and actually have it be more than a pretty picture means you've won in that specific one. But
Okay.
it's super hard. It's super
I
hard.
have a question then. Okay. So let's compare it to music. So something that's recorded digitally is going to not sound the same if it's analog. Analog has those warm tones. You can
No,
reproduce it
not
closely,
necessarily.
but
Remember, I work for a company that does some of the best modeling in the world.
okay.
Um,
So, but it's not exactly the same.
I think
If I pick up a record, a vinyl,
now
I'm going to feel certain things.
that's nothing to do with how it was recorded, though, because
No, no, but I'm talking about because you get the textures, you get a bunch of different
yeah,
things on vinyl.
yeah.
Okay, so if you take a picture, a film picture, I think for me it would be easier to be able to relay emotions through film and not so much through digital.
I'm going to politely disagree, but there are many people I know and are colleagues and peers of mine who would totally agree with you. One of the differences that's magical between digital and film photography is with film photography, you have no idea what you've caught until it's processed,
Right.
which means you don't have any idea if you really messed it up and got it wrong. With digital photography, you at least have a chance to look at it in the viewfinder and go, it's close, or I'm far off, or get an idea even if the light is right. I mean, one of my best selling prints was shot in a lower falls on the side of Mount St. Helens in Gifford Pinchot National Forest. It was late October. It was freaking cold. I was thigh deep in the waterfall water that was so cold I couldn't even feel my legs. But I stood there for an hour and a half because the light just wasn't right. And
Uh-huh.
then Scott, who took a picture of that because he was like, he's crazy doing that. He took a picture. It's still one of my favorite pictures. He had to come and help me out because I couldn't move. Um,
Wow.
but it's still one of my favorite shots because one of the things which I was really trying to do was capture the power of the water coming over those waterfalls, but at the same point in time, capture the silence of the forest.
Hmm.
So, and that actually ended up being my first print that I ever sold, and also the first one that ever sold out.
That's really, I've seen that. I like that one a lot.
Yeah, maybe if we're clever,
Yeah,
we can overlay it while we're talking about it.
maybe, but
Maybe.
we'd have to be clever.
Well, it's like maybe we can find somebody who's good at this stuff.
Yeah, maybe. Let's talk about something else that's hard. Um, you know, it's been tough the last year and a half in this industry. Um, and every time we think we're taking a step forward, we're not. Um, but somehow you have been able to do things. You set up your office and this great look. really fast. And people, you've been on a bunch of my events, and people are always asking you, how did you do it? How did you do it? You're always so happy to share the information. Um, but what I want to know, there's a couple of things. One is, how did you do it? And how were you able to just turn around that fast and be able to create this new environment for yourself?
Firstly, thank you. I appreciate the compliment. The simple fact was at the beginning of last year, first big event was, I guess it was kind of an event was I get off a plane in Los Angeles and I nearly die and have to have heart surgery. So that ruined NAM for me completely. Very inconvenient.
Gee, it's shocking.
What was really funny about that was, I can not talk to people for months and months and months, but if I don't show up at NAM, everybody thinks the world's ending. So
Mhm.
I've got people ringing me going, dude, is everything okay? You're not on the show floor. You're not at NAM. Meanwhile, I'm getting heart surgery. So number one, I nearly die, which puts me off the road from a life that's usually 260, 280 days a year on the road like you. So then my boss basically says, you are grounded for now. And then the pandemic happens. Now, by that point in time, one of the things which you and I both know, I run everything apart from the really big events like NAM and AES, which we have somebody else who's a good friend about.
Scout.
Okay, listen, Scout, don't take what I'm saying personally. I'm not talking about you, I know, but listen, back off. No.
I gotta turn off my mic.
So, pandemic happens. Corey, you're probably going to have to shorten this bit. But so, pandemic comes along. I, like you, Karen, have to suddenly cancel a ton of events, in-person events. The first one was like 2 weeks away in Nashville, and then it just
Yeah.
kept on going and going. The problem I had was twofold. One of them was a problem. The other one was a personal problem to me that I felt like I had to try and find a fix for. The first problem was, what are we going to do as a company to get in front of all these people now that we're not doing in-person events? So
Mhm.
I start Googling live streaming, and I knew nothing about live streaming at this point in time. Zero, absolutely nothing. The second thing that I felt really kind of very, I guess, personally, emotionally connected to was like, okay, this is one of those times where companies can be forced to shrink, downsize, etc. Now, Waves as a company is an amazingly good employer. If there's a very, very high retention rate here, it's not a
Mhm.
revolving door because they're just good people. Um, However, it's not immune to business problems. So I wanted to try and also make sure that I kept everybody that I had a connection with and had any amount of control over what they were doing in their jobs relevant. So I wanted to
Mhm.
keep all of our sales staff doing recurring somethings.
Right.
So I started working out, how do we create webinars that they can do like every week in multiple languages. Okay, what's this thing called Zoom? So let's suddenly I've got a corporate Zoom account. Suddenly we've got personalized Zoom domain. I'm learning about lights, cameras, angles, and then I had to go and train people how to talk into a camera. And I'm still doing that today, inside Waves and outside of Waves, because there's such a huge difference in the world right now, because we are in this space where there are statistics I was reading at 2 o'clock this morning. 80% of all business calls right now are video calls around the world as of
Mhm.
August this year. The biggest problem with those is what is perceived as a communication breakdown between people, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that rather than people looking in the camera. When people are talking to someone else on a Zoom call or a video call, they spend all their time looking at that person, like I'm now looking at your picture, and having a conversation with a face on a screen, which doesn't really become apparent to you until you realize and you're shown and called out about it from somebody like
Right.
me. So every single event suddenly became an online event, which was successful, and I'm grateful for it. I think the biggest thing that I wanted to do was, though, I wanted to try and create some kind of event that was Waves branded, but not Waves branded, more me branded, and use the platform I had to give people in the industry somewhere that they could come at the end of the week and either just listen to other people talk or have a conversation, and I called those the Waves quarantine sessions, and we did those from. I think I did my first one at the end of March last year, and we did them all the way up till December last year.
Right.
Yeah. So those I think, if anybody ever got any comfort out of those, even one person, then I won.
Oh, yeah, and I think that the people had the opportunity to see they weren't the only ones feeling certain
And
ways.
that's a big deal. I
Yeah.
mean, I, along with a lot of people, we, in a way, and it sounds dramatic, but it's true. If you spend all of your time on the road, which Karen I did, anybody in live sound did,
Yeah.
and multiple other industries, suddenly being confined to one space and not doing that is literally like having your identity ripped away from you. And one of the biggest problems that I found after I've read numerous books on this and researched the hell out of it is really easy to feel like you're feeling the way you are, but nobody else is. And
Right.
there's nothing wrong with that. It's just human nature. But it takes a call like what I called the quarantine sessions to hopefully let you realize that there are other people. And we had some mainstays in there, like people like Mauricio and Stanley and Lorin and you. And it was just as much therapy for me as it was for anybody else. But my main focus was I just wanted to help people. So
Yeah. So I had a thought and then I completely lost what it was. Um, so you're busy all the time. Um, I can text you at 4 a.m. Pacific time. I can text you will text me at 11 o'clock Pacific
yeah.
time. So, but I know you're such a creative person. So how do you continue to feed the creativity when you're so busy doing work stuff or whatever other things? How do you stay creative?
A lot of it comes down to forcing yourself to walk away from what you're doing and kind of do a quick reset. Um, I mean, today's a perfect example. So today I have a 2-hour training with a sales specialist for Waves. I have this, which I'm doing with you, which I love. I also have 2 videos to shoot for the marketing department. I have a meeting with a book editor, and I have a networking call with a guy who's looking at rebuilding my website that I want to use. So there's multiple things. My first meeting this morning was at 6 a.m. My last one is at 10 p.m. tonight. So I have to make sure that I define those spaces and then in between them leave this room
Mhm.
and go out, walk the golf course, jump in the pool, do a lap, jump on my bike, do something that's different. And one of the things that helps me do that is Spotify playlists. I've created 4 different playlists that all have very, very specific jobs. One of them I have that I use when I'm writing. And it doesn't matter that the songs are repetitive because my brain is now kicked into those songs are playing, we're doing this.
Right.
I have one playlist called, it's literally called MPA Calm Your Damn Self Down. And that's one that I play either really late at night or when I'm finishing or in between certain jobs. Like I was playing that one because right before we started this podcast, I'd just come out of the first half of the video shoot. I was hot, I was sweaty, I'd rearranged this room again, and I was like, okay, press play on John Hopkins. Woosa. So and then I have a playlist for getting ready for doing a webinar, and I have another playlist for meditation or exercising. So, but I found that music actually helps my brain trigger into, oh, we're doing this now. And it's become a playlist has helped me trigger different habits. And one of those habits has to be stop. Because that's my biggest problem is stopping. It's like Piper Payne and I were talking about this a few weeks ago, and I'm sure she won't mind me dropping her name on that one. We were talking about the fact that we're both very addicted to 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning ideas popping into our head and going off and buying domain names. It's like so, and we were swapping stories on the last conversation we had about how many have you got? Well, I've got 20 of those. Yeah, well, I've got a .ar or something or whatever else. And it's like, you do? I don't have one of those. But yeah, you have to stop occasionally. But the way I stop is I do something different. So, there's a keyboard behind me here that I play every morning with a specific piano setting and every night. And
it's like your meditation.
It is. And, the other thing is I also have the smart devices around this house set up. So when I walk into the studio in the morning, and I'm not going to do it right now because it will turn everything off because it works in both, I can say such and such smart device, let's get this show on the road. And all the studio lights come on in a specific setting. A playlist starts. The computer goes onto a specific app.
That's awesome.
But it's how I start.
That's really awesome.
It's how I start my day. And then at the end of the day, I can do the opposite, and I can go shut this down, and lights dim to dark blue. Backlights turn on, computer turns into a completely different setting, and video lights all turn off. So, it's, again, if you can create a situation where your brain does what mine does now, which is like, oh, we're doing that now. Cool. Then it helps. It's like habit creating, I guess.
Okay. I've always known you as someone who wants to always help other people.
Yeah.
You've always been that way, whether or not people are asking you for it. If you think you can help them,
I'm fucking pushy.
Well, yeah, I didn't want to say that.
No,
yeah, you're really pushy.
I'm really pushy. It's like, I annoyed the hell out of you. But I hope, and I really do genuinely hope that you at some point have looked back and gone, okay, that was worth him pushing me on.
Okay, but look, I'm doing this, and I still have that long email you sent me about the whole other thing you want me to do.
I believe in you. Everybody, I believe in Karen. I really do.
Okay, so this community is super important to me. I love the people in it. And one of the main reasons I wanted to do this podcast is because I wanted to show these people who are famous for something or well known for something that's not them, that they're more than that. They read, they drink beer, they ride motorcycles, they create music, they shoot beautiful photos. So it all comes down to the same question I ask everybody. What does community mean to you?
Community means everything, and it sounds like a cliche answer, but to me, community is defined by a group of people who are willing, without a second thought or consideration, to help others around them in getting that next step up in what they're doing, or finishing a project, or being motivated further to push them and nudge them in the right direction. And the industry, which we really can call a community, that you and I are in, is definitely that for the most part. And I feel that if you look back at the last year and a half, we have seen two things. Firstly, we saw initial outpouring of love and passion for let's all jump on Zoom calls. We then found this new term, which is now in the Webster dictionary, which is Zoom fatigue. Zoom fatigue is defined as, I motherfucking hate Zoom. Please don't put me in front of the camera anymore. And then after we'd been through the initial outpouring and then into the I'm exhausted, Zoom fatigue to me is what I call a community at the end of last year that was emotionally and mentally broken, without actually knowing that we were all emotionally and mentally broken, because we didn't really talk about it. It took this year starting the same way, and us really realizing, okay, the normal that we had is not going to come back. We don't know what the new normal is yet, but as a community, we can get together and we can make sure that we all get to the new normal. I'm a big believer that the people who have come to this point in time, who you and I call the community, is slightly smaller than we thought it would be, but it's a lot stronger. Because I'm a huge believer as well that any kind of disaster really brings out the true colors in people. And it helps us all realize what people are really like. And that, in turn, helps us choose whether we want to continue with those people in our life or whether we want to leave them in that part that we were and move forward without them. And that, to me, is a lot nicer way of explaining the divisiveness that we're all in right now in the world. I could say mostly in North America, because I don't believe I've seen as much divisiveness recently as I have over here. But this community continues. And a lot of it has to do with the unconditional want and desire to be there and help people that you don't even know. But if they need help, you'll help them. And I always like sparing that if I can.
Okay, last question. And this is my favorite question of all of them. So I'm coming to visit you, and what I want to know, and it can be anywhere in the world, because I know you travel around. So I'm willing to go to the ends of the earth to go hang out with you. So where are we going to go? What am I going to be eating? What are we going to be drinking? And what are we going to be talking about?
Okay, really easy. So we're not going far. We're going to Venice Beach. We're going to be at the Mexican restaurant at the end of Washington. We're going to be drinking margaritas that I have specifically ordered because you're not very good at ordering them.
And well, wait. Before we go to the next part, what is in the margaritas? Because I don't ever remember.
Okay.
I've called you on trips when you're not with me to find out what I'm supposed to be ordering.
Okay, everybody. It's a margarita on the rocks with no salt with Patron Silva. Simple as that. And the other thing is, make sure that they're not using a margarita mix. If they use a margarita mix, they are going to hell in a handbasket, and they will never see me or hear from me again.
Yes. Okay. And what are we going to be talking about?
We're going to be talking about the next challenge that I want you to take on as your adventure, which I sent you a really long email about. So I need to explain something here, and this is connected to this question, but it's also connected to the last one. There are certain people in my life that I love as if they were blood family, and Karen is one of them. Now, in this kind of situation, I believe that there are times where we know what somebody has in their potential better than somebody themselves knows. And I do believe that it is actually worth pushing the hell out of somebody to make them just jump that extra step to realize, oh my God, this is something I can do. And that's what I'm trying to do with Karen right now, because I believe the hell out of this woman. I mean, look at you go, girl. You're doing this podcast and everything.
Well, thank you. And that wraps up this podcast. So thank you very much for agreeing to do this. I know you're really busy, and I got to see you for an hour.
I'm rapt.
Virtually.
Yeah, I'm flattered you asked me. I really am. I respect you immensely. I love you like family, and this is amazing. I love it.
Thank you.